Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The familiar scent of motor oil clung to Merrick's clothes as he turned his pickup into the driveway, 3 hours earlier than usual. Tate had offered to close the shop after Merrick mentioned the headache that had been building behind his eyes since noon. The driveway looked wrong. Talia's silver Accord sat at an odd angle, the trunk open. His combat instincts, dulled by years of civilian life, but never truly gone, flared to life. He pushed open the front door to find the living room in disarray. Not the comfortable, lived-in mess of family life, but the violent disorder of hasty packing. A suitcase sat by the stairs, overstuffed and poorly closed. From upstairs came Talia's voice, sharp-edged and brittle. "I told you to get your toy. Not every damn thing you own. We can't fit all this." Then Sadie's small voice, trembling, "But Daddy gave me this one. Leave it. I'm not telling you again." The stairs took Merrick to a time. He found them in Sadie's bedroom, his daughter's face tear-streaked, his wife's flushed with anger. Clothes and toys scattered across the floor. Sadie clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, knuckles white. "What's going on?" Merrick's voice was quiet, controlled. The same tone he'd used in the service when things went sideways. Talia's eyes snapped to him, surprise quickly hardening to defiance. "You're home early." Clearly, he looked at Sadie, whose eyes brightened slightly at the sight of him. "Hey, kiddo, could you go downstairs for a minute? She stays with me." Talia cut in, stepping between them. "This isn't a discussion. Looks like it should be." Merrick stepped into the room fully. "You're packing. Where are you taking my daughter?" "My daughter, too." "And away from this." She gestured around her, not at the room, but at something larger, intangible, this dead-end life. "Talia, whatever's going on, we can talk about it." "Not in front of Sadie. There's nothing to talk about." Talia grabbed Sadie's small suitcase and zipped it forcefully. "I've made my decision. We're leaving. Just like that. No discussion, no warning." The calmness in his voice masked the thunder in his chest. "Like you discuss anything with me?" Talia laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. "You come home, grunt a few words, play with Sadie, then shut down. You've been gone for years, Merrick. You just happen to still be in the house." "I have never," he started, his voice dangerously low, "never been anything but present for her." "For both of you." "Present? Physically, maybe." Talia's voice rose. "You came back from that war, but you left part of yourself there. The part that knows how to be human, how to love properly. Sadie needs more than your brooding silence." "Where are you going?" he asked, ignoring the barbs. "To my brother's. Then somewhere you won't find us easily." She lifted her chin. "Clive has connections. He'll help me get full custody. You're not taking her." It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact. Talia's eyes narrowed. "Watch me. What will you do? Force us to stay? Prove exactly what I know about you." "Sadie," he said, not taking his eyes off Talia, "I love you. Remember that. No matter what happens." "Daddy." Sadie's voice cracked. "Enough." Talia grabbed the suitcase with one hand, Sadie with the other. "We're going. Don't try to stop us if you know what's good for you." As she pushed past him, Merrick caught her arm, gentle but firm. "This isn't over." Talia's smile was cold. It was over long before today. He watched them descend the stairs, Sadie looking back at him with confusion and fear. He followed at a distance, not to stop them. That would only escalate things in front of Sadie, but to etch every detail into his memory. The engine started. Tires crunched on gravel. Merrick stood in the driveway, letting the car pull away. He didn't chase, didn't shout, didn't beg. Each would have given Talia exactly what she wanted, proof that he was unstable, volatile, desperate. Instead, he watched the car disappear around the corner, a cold certainty settling in his bones. She had taken his daughter, but this was just the beginning, not the end. Scene 2, the smear campaign 7 days. That was all it took for Merrick's world to officially collapse. The legal notice arrived with the morning mail, its official envelope a stark contrast to the bills and junk that typically filled his box. Merrick read it standing in the driveway, the Oregon drizzle soaking through his shirt. He didn't feel it. Talia had filed for full custody. Not joint, not shared. Full. As if Merrick were not just an inadequate father, but a dangerous one. Heard about what happened, Tate said during lunch break at the auto shop, his weathered face creased with concern. Town's talking. Let them talk. They're saying things, Mayor. Bad things. They're saying you came back wrong. That the war. That you're not safe to be around a kid. Who's saying this? Exactly. Started with Talia's crowd. That fancy book club she's in. Then her brother's been talking to people at the courthouse. Tate hesitated. And some folks are bringing up that time at the 4th of July barbecue. When the fireworks started and you had a reaction, Merrick finished flatly. One moment of weakness, 2 years ago, when the unexpected fireworks had triggered a flashback, and he'd found himself crouched in the corner of Jim Talbot's backyard, breathing hard, eyes wild. Sadie had been the one to approach him, to touch his face gently and bring him back. After work, Merrick drove to the grocery store. Mrs. Headley, who'd always greeted him warmly, averted her eyes. Two mothers in the produce section whispered as he passed, their gazes a mixture of suspicion and pity. His jaw clenched. He'd survived 3 tours in hell. He could survive small-town gossip. T. the checkout, Kelly Dawson, who'd gone to high school with Talia, gave him an openly hostile look. "Something on your mind, Kelly?" he asked quietly. She scanned his items with unnecessary force. "I always knew there was something off about you. Talia was too good for this town, and you trapped her here. No wonder she finally got out." The next blow came via Leon Caro. The deputy sheriff pulled up to the shop just before closing, his official vehicle a silent warning. Leon and Merrick had served together before Leon joined the sheriff's department. There had been a time when they'd called each other brother. "Merrick." Leon's voice was professionally neutral as he approached. "Too neutral." "Deputy," Merrick replied, equally formal, wiping his hands on a rag. "What brings you by?" Leon glanced around the shop, then lowered his voice. "Listen, man, I'm giving you a heads up because of what we went through together. Talia's filed a report. Ice in his veins." "What kind of report?" "She's claiming emotional abuse. Says you've been having episodes, threatening her. Says she's afraid for Sadie's safety." Leon's expression remained carefully blank. "Given the custody situation, we have to investigate. It'll be official tomorrow." Merrick's hands stopped moving. "You believe that garbage?" A flicker of the old Leon showed through. "What I believe doesn't matter. It's on file now. Her brother's got the ear of the DA. They're building a case." "A case for what?" "I've never laid a hand on either of them. Never would. It's not about physical abuse. It's about your condition." Leon shifted uncomfortably. "PTSD makes a convenient villain, Merrick. Especially when the judge has no military background." The betrayal burned. Not from Talia, he'd expected nothing less, but from a system that would use his service against him. The very thing that had damaged him was now being weaponized to take away the one person who made the damage bearable. "What do I do?" Merrick asked, the question foreign and bitter on his tongue. He wasn't used to being helpless. Leon looked away. "Lawyer up. Fast. And be careful. They're watching for any slip." After Leon left, Merrick locked up the shop and drove home to the empty house. He stood in Sadie's room, surrounded by the toys and books she'd been forced to leave behind. He had faced ambushes before. The key to survival was planning, patience, and a willingness to do what others wouldn't. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Joni? It's Merrick. I need your help." His sister's voice was a lifeline in the dark. "I heard. That bitch. What do you need?" "Information. Eyes and ears. And maybe a place to crash if this gets ugly." "You've got it. All of it. No hesitation, no doubt. We'll fight this together." "One more thing," he said. "I need a lawyer who isn't afraid of Clive Brackenridge." The visitation center smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Merrick sat ramrod straight in an uncomfortable plastic chair, waiting point 2 weeks. It had been 2 weeks since he'd seen Sadie. The court had granted him supervised visitation 1 hour, once a week while the custody case proceeded. A victory, according to his lawyer, given the accusations Talia had leveled against him. The door opened, and Sadie appeared, her small hand engulfed in that of a social worker, Janet something. "Daddy!" Her face lit up, and she broke free of Janet's grip, running to him. Merrick caught her, lifting her into a hug that threatened to crush his composure. She felt smaller somehow, frilier, though it had only been 2 weeks. "Hey, kiddo," he managed, his voice rough with emotion. "I've missed you." Janet hovered nearby, clipboard in hand, eyes watchful. Merrick ignored her, focusing entirely on Sadie as he set her back on her feet. "I missed you too," Sadie said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Can we go home now?" The question was a knife to his heart. "Not today, sweetheart, but we get to spend some time together." "That's good, right?" They bent over a sketchbook together, Merrick letting her take the lead. She drew what looked like a house with a large tree beside it. Their house. The old oak that dominated their backyard. "Mommy doesn't let me draw much anymore," Sadie confided, her voice dropping again. "She says I need to focus on my reading." Merrick kept his expression neutral, though internally he seethed. Sadie loved to draw. It was her way of processing the world. Taking that away was cruel. "Mommy's different now," she whispered. "She gets angry a lot, and she makes me practice what to say." Merrick's pencil stilled. "Practice what to say?" Sadie glanced toward Janet, then back to the drawing. "For when people ask me questions about you." She says I have to tell them you get scary sometimes. A cold rage built in Merrick's chest, but his face and voice remained gentle. "And what do you say?" "I say what she tells me to." "But," Sadie leaned closer, her voice barely audible, "I remember the truth. You never scared me, not even when you had your bad dreams." Merrick swallowed hard. "Sadie, listen to me. You should always tell the truth. But I understand if sometimes you're afraid to. Just know that no matter what happens, I love you. Always." When Janet announced their time was up, Sadie clung to him with surprising strength. "Don't go," she pleaded, burying her face against his chest. "I'm not going anywhere, Sadie," he promised, gently disentangling her. "I'll see you next week, same time." As Janet led her away, she turned back one last time. "Daddy," she called, her voice steadier than it had been all hour. "I remember the truth." The door closed behind them, and Merrick sat alone in the too-bright room, her words echoing in his mind. "I remember the truth." His 6-year-old daughter shouldn't have to carry such a burden, shouldn't have to navigate adult manipulation and deceit. As he walked into the gray Oregon afternoon, a plan began to form. Talia wanted a battle of narratives? Fine, but she had overlooked something critical. Sadie had her own story to tell, and Merrick was going to make damn sure she got the chance to tell it. The county courthouse stood like a fortress of stone and authority. Merrick straightened his tie and nodded to his lawyer, Maya Collins. She was young but tenacious, with no connections to Clive Brackenridge and no fear of him. "Remember," she murmured as they approached the courtroom, "let me do the talking, no matter what they say about you." They entered to find Talia already seated with her legal team, Clive himself, and 2 associates from his firm. Talia wore a conservative blue dress, her hair pulled back in a modest knot, her makeup subtle. The perfect picture of a concerned mother. Clive stared him down with open contempt. The man had never approved of Merrick, had always seen him as beneath his precious sister. Now, his smug expression said all. He believed he had already won. Judge Delilah Knox entered, and the preliminary hearing began. As Maya had warned, it was mostly procedural, establishing timelines, reviewing initial filings, setting the framework for the custody evaluation to come. Then Clive stood, buttoning his expensive suit jacket with practiced ease. "Your Honor, while we appreciate the court's thoroughness, my client wishes to express her urgent concern about the current visitation arrangement. Even supervised contact has been traumatic for the minor child. The guardian ad litem's report indicates no such issues, Mr. Brackenridge." Judge Knox replied, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. "Do you have new evidence to present?" "We do, Your Honor." Clive nodded to one of his associates, who approached with a document. "This is an affidavit from Dr. Eliza Porter, the child's new pediatrician. She notes signs of anxiety and emotional distress that correspond with the visitation schedule." The pattern continued throughout the hearing. Clive painting Merrick as unstable, unsafe, unfit, a combat veteran with documented anger issues and concerning behavior patterns. Each accusation carefully worded to imply danger without directly alleging abuse, a strategy that made it nearly impossible to refute. When Talia took the stand, her performance was masterful. Tears welling but never falling, voice trembling as she described her growing fear for Sadie's well-being. How Merrick would disappear inside himself and become someone else during his episodes. He loves Sadie, she admitted, a calculated concession. But love isn't enough when someone is damaged. I just want what's best for her. I want her to feel safe. Merrick kept his face expressionless, even as rage and grief battled within him. He caught Judge Knox studying him, looking for any crack in his composure, any sign that might confirm Talia's portrayal. He gave her nothing. Later that evening, Merrick sat at Joni's kitchen table, the remnants of dinner pushed aside. Her diner had closed an hour earlier, but the smell of grilled onions and coffee still hung in the air. "You should have seen her," he said, turning his coffee mug in slow circles. "Acting like she's terrified of me, like I'm some ticking bomb." Joni snorted. That woman couldn't act her way out of a paper bag in high school. Now, suddenly she's Meryl Streep? She's convincing enough. Merrick's voice was flat, and Clive's got half the town believing I'm one loud noise away from a killing spree. Then we make sure she doesn't. What did your lawyers say about getting character witnesses? She's working on it. But Talia's got doctors and experts who've never met me diagnosing me from a distance. He rubbed his face. And I can't exactly deny the PTSD. It's in my military records. Having PTSD doesn't make you dangerous. Hell, half the guys who came back have some version of it. Doesn't matter. They're using it against me. He stared into his coffee. I need to find out what Talia's really after. This scorched earth campaign, it's not like her. She wants something. We need to be careful, he warned. If Clive gets wind of us digging, let him, Joni said fiercely. That smug bastard thinks he owns this town. But he forgets the Langleys have been here a lot longer than the Brackenridges. And we got a different kind of influence. One more thing, he said, reaching for his jacket. I need you to keep an ear out for anything about Talia's new situation. Who she's spending time with. If there's someone else in the picture. Because if there was one thing Merrick Langley knew how to do, it was survive when everything was stacked against him. Only this time, he wasn't fighting just for survival, he was fighting for his daughter. The sunset painted Merrick's workshop in shades of amber and gold as he worked, the rhythmic scrape of sandpaper against wood filling the silence. The rocking chair was taking shape beneath his hand, a project he'd started for Sadie's birthday months ago, before the world imploded. The workshop door creaked open, and Leon stepped in, still in uniform, but with an air of casualness that suggested this wasn't an official visit. "Been a while," Leon said, eyeing the half-finished chair. Merrick didn't look up. "Didn't think we were on speaking terms these days. I'm still doing my job, Mayor. But that doesn't mean I've forgotten who pulled me out of that building in Kandahar. What brings you by, Deputy?" Leon glanced over his shoulder, then closed the workshop door. "Information. Off the record. There's talk around the department. About Talia." Leon shifted uncomfortably. "She's been seen around town with a guy. Businessman from Portland. Real estate developer or something. And they don't seem like new acquaintances, if you catch my meaning." The implication hung in the air. Merrick absorbed it with a strange sense of detachment. "How long?" "No idea, but they're not hiding it now." Leon hesitated. "There's more. Clive's been meeting with them too. Lots of closed-door stuff at his office. Talia always said Clive had bigger ambitions than this town. Political aspirations. Word is he's gearing up for a state senate run next year." Leon scratched his neck. "And this developer Reynolds, is his name has deep pockets and connections in Portland politics. So Clive gets campaign financing. What does Talia get, besides a wealthy boyfriend?" "No idea." Leon studied him. "That's why I'm here. This feels orchestrated." Merrick walked to the small refrigerator in the corner and pulled out 2 beers, offering one to Leon. A peace offering of sorts. "When did you meet her?" Leon asked eventually. "I never got the whole story. 5 years ago, at that fundraiser Joni dragged me to, for the Veterans Center." Leon nodded. "I remember. You looked like you wanted to be anywhere else." "I did." Merrick took another swig of beer, the memories rising like ghosts. Then Talia appeared with a glass of champagne and the most genuine smile I'd seen since coming home. Or so he'd thought at the time. Now he wondered if anything about Talia had ever been genuine. She was volunteering at the event, he continued. Said her brother was on the board. She asked about my service without that. Pity look most civilians get. You got married pretty quick after that. 6 months. Merrick stared at his beer. Seemed like the right move. She was enthusiastic about starting a family. Sadie came along a year later. Leon was quiet for a moment. When did things change? Merrick considered the question, mentally tracing the arc of his marriage. It wasn't sudden. More like the mask slipped bit by bit. The woman I married loved the idea of a simple life with a hometown hero. The reality was different. Different how? Boring. Constrictive. Merrick's voice was flat. I couldn't give her the lifestyle she wanted. The social status. She started spending more time with Clive's crowd, coming home dissatisfied. But she stayed, Leon pointed out. For years. For Sadie, she said. Merrick set down his empty bottle. Now I wonder if she was just waiting for the right opportunity. And this Reynolds guy, is it? Maybe. Merrick pushed away from the workbench, restless. Or maybe he's just part of something bigger. Talia never does anything unless there's a clear benefit for her. The comment hung in the air, and Leon gave him a searching look. Including marrying you? The question struck deeper than Merrick wanted to admit. I've been asking myself that same thing. For what it's worth, Leon said, finishing his beer, I never understood what you saw in her either. Merrick almost smiled. She was beautiful, charming, made me feel like a whole person again, not just damaged goods. He shrugged. Or maybe I was just tired of being alone with the things in my head. Leon nodded, understanding without needing it spelled out. And Sadie? Where does she fit in all this? That's what I can't figure. If Talia's moving on to bigger and better, why take Sadie? Why not leave her with me? It would be cleaner. Trophy, Leon suggested. Or leverage. Against who? Me? I don't have anything Talia wants anymore. Leon hesitated. Unless it's not about what she wants from you. Maybe it's about what she doesn't want you to have. The words sank in slowly, their implication chilling. Talia knew how much Merrick loved Sadie. Knew that his daughter was his anchor, his purpose, his joy. Taking Sadie wasn't just about possession. It was about punishment. I should go, Leon said, checking his watch. This conversation never happened. The call came at 2:37 a.m., yanking Merrick from a restless sleep. Langley's auto. His voice was rough with sleep, but the shop number ringing at this hour usually meant an emergency tow. Merrick? It's Leon. The deputy's voice was tight, professional. There's been an incident at your shop. Break-in, vandalism. You need to come down. 20 minutes later, Merrick pulled into the shop's parking lot, which was now a kaleidoscope of red and blue lights. The front window was shattered, glass glittering on the pavement. Leon met him at the perimeter tape. Brace yourself, he said quietly. Inside, Merrick stopped cold. The office area was destroyed, furniture overturned, computer smashed, paperwork scattered. But the garage itself was worse. Tools were strewn everywhere, expensive diagnostic equipment smashed beyond repair. And on the wall, spray painted in jagged red letters, baby killer. Merrick's blood turned to ice. He'd never killed civilians during his service, had, in fact, risked his own life multiple times to protect them. But the accusation wasn't really about his military record. It was about painting him as a danger to children. To Sadie. Security camera, he managed, his voice unnaturally calm. Leon shook his head. Cut before they got in. Professional job. Any witnesses? Working on it. Canvassing the area. Leon lowered his voice. Sheriff wants to talk to you tomorrow. Formally. About what? Insurance. The policy on this place was updated 3 weeks ago. Increased coverage for equipment and property damage. The implication was clear. Merrick laughed humorlessly. You think I did this? For insurance money. Leon's expression remained neutral. I don't, but the timing's suspicious. And with everything else going on, the custody case. Merrick rubbed his jaw, the pieces falling into place. Someone setting me up. Dawn was breaking by the time the officers finished processing the scene. Merrick stood in the wreckage of his shop, mentally calculating what could be salvaged and what was lost completely. The monetary damage was significant, but the real target was his reputation, his stability, his ability to provide for Sadie. His phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. Saw a fancy car by your shop last night. Around midnight. Thought you should know. Jason. It took Merrick a moment to place the name. Jason Kettering, the teenager who worked weekends at the gas station down the street. Merrick slipped the phone back into his pocket without responding. Not yet. Not while he was being watched. Leon was the last to leave, pausing at the door. You got somewhere to stay? This place isn't secure anymore. I'll figure something out. Leon nodded, then said quietly, Watch your back, Mayor. This wasn't random. Alone in the ruins of his shop, Merrick pulled out his phone again and studied Jason's text. A fancy car. At midnight. The kind of detail that might be dismissed as irrelevant or unreliable, especially coming from a teenager. Unless someone knew to look for it, that he called Joni. I need another favor, he said when she answered. There's a kid named Jason Kettering. Works at the Shell station on Main. I need you to talk to him. Casually. About a car he saw near my shop last night. I can't approach him directly. It would look suspicious. Joni understood immediately. Consider it done. Where are you staying? Right here. In plain sight. Because the best way to catch someone in a trap was to make them think their first trap had worked. The motel room was small and impersonal, but at least it was clean. Merrick sat on the edge of the bed, turning Sadie's stuffed bear over in his hands. He'd picked it up from the house on his way here, one of the few toys she'd been forced to leave behind. Its worn fur and mismatched button eyes spoke of years of love, that it was perfect for what he needed, that a knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Joni holding a bag of takeout from her diner and a small shopping bag. Got what you asked for, she said, pushing past him into the room. Though I still think you're being paranoid. It's not paranoia when they're actually after you. Merrick took the shopping bag and examined its contents. A small voice recorder, about the size of a USB drive, and extra batteries. Joni set out the food on the small table by the window. Jason confirmed what he saw. Dark sedan, expensive looking. He thought it might be a Mercedes, but wasn't sure. Said he recognized the driver. Merrick looked up sharply. Oh, Clive Brackenridge. Joni's expression was grim. Kid was certain. Said he remembers because Clive came into the station once and stiffed him on a tip after Jason washed his windshield. Merrick opened the back seam of the bear carefully, creating a small pocket in the stuffing. He inserted the voice recorder, then began to sew the seam closed with precise, even stitches, a skill he'd learned in the Army, where being able to repair your own gear could sometimes mean survival. Sadie's next visitation is tomorrow. He explained, his focus on the stitching. I'm giving her back her favorite bear. With a new feature. Joni's eyes widened. You're bugging your own kid? I'm giving her a way to tell her story without fear. Merrick tied off the thread and snipped it. Talia's coaching her, pressuring her. This way, Sadie can speak freely in her own space. And if Talia finds it, she won't. Sadie knows how to keep secrets. His voice softened. She's been doing it for weeks already. Joni was quiet for a moment, watching him test the recorder. Is this legal? Probably not. Merrick met her eyes steadily. Does that change your mind about helping me? Hell no. She pulled out a chair and sat down. I'm just calculating bail money. Later, alone in the quiet room, Merrick stared at the bear sitting on the desk. The recorder inside it was small, with limited memory. It would have to be activated deliberately, used sparingly, save for the moments that mattered most. That it was a risk. A significant one. If discovered, it could be twisted into evidence of his manipulation, his desperation. But Sadie's word from their last visit echoed in his mind. I remember the truth. His daughter was carrying a burden no child should have to bear, the awareness of adult deception, the pressure to participate in a lie. The recorder would ease that burden, give her a way to speak without fear, to preserve the reality she experienced rather than the one Talia was trying to create. The diner buzzed with the usual Saturday lunch crowd. Joni moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her smile professional but her eyes watchful. Merrick sat in a corner booth, nursing a coffee, a newspaper open in front of him, though he hadn't read a word. His position gave him a clear view of the door and the street beyond. Precisely noon, a silver Accord pulled up outside. Talia emerged, immaculate in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. She opened the back door, and Sadie climbed out, Clutching Mr. Buttons, the bear Merrick had returned to her during their last supervised visit. Talia bent to say something to Sadie, her smile tight, then glanced at her watch. The message was clear. Hurry up, we don't have all day. Sadie nodded and walked toward the diner alone. Her small shoulders squared with a determination that was achingly familiar. Merrick ducked his head as the bell above the door jingled. He'd chosen this seat, carefully visible to Joni but screened from the entrance by a large plant. Joni greeted Sadie with exaggerated cheer. "There's my favorite customer. Your usual booth is ready, sweet pea." The next hour unfolded with excruciating slowness. Merrick sipped his coffee, ordered food he had no appetite for, and pretended to read while hyper-aware of his daughter's presence across the room. Occasionally, Joni would stop by his table with a coffee refill, murmuring updates. Finally, as Sadie finished her dessert, the chocolate sundae she always ordered, Joni slid into Merrick's booth quickly. "It's done," she whispered. "The letter. She wrote it herself. I just helped with spelling." Merrick's pulse quickened. "Where is it?" "In her backpack. She knows to keep it secret. To only give it to the judge if—" Joni stopped as the bell above the door jingled again. Talia stood in the entrance, her eyes scanning the diner impatiently. Joni stood, blocking Merrick from view. "Right with you, ma'am," she called, then hissed to Merrick, "Go out the back." "Now." Merrick left money on the table and slipped toward the kitchen, where the back door offered a discreet exit. Through the small round window in the swinging door, he caught one last glimpse of Sadie gathering her things, carefully placing Mr. Buttons in her backpack alongside the hidden letter. That night, in his motel room, Merrick sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone. The screen displayed a single audio file, transmitted from the recorder in Mr. Buttons to the secure cloud account he'd set up. His finger hovered over the play button, doubts suddenly assailing him. Was he crossing a line? Invading her privacy? Using his own daughter as an unwitting spy? No, he decided. This wasn't about surveillance. It was about protection. About giving Sadie a voice when everyone else was trying to dictate her words. He pressed play to AT first. There was only rustling, background noise. Then Sadie's voice, small but clear. "This is Sadie. Daddy, if you're listening, I did what Aunt Joni said. I wrote the letter for the judge. I hid it in my special box where Mommy doesn't look." A pause, more rustling. "Mommy was mad today. At lunch. She called twice to check if I was still with Aunt Joni. She doesn't like when I see her. Says she's a bad influence." Sadie's voice dropped to a whisper. "I heard Mommy talking to Uncle Clive last night. They were in his office. I'm not supposed to go in there, but I wanted to get Mr. Buttons, and the door was open a little bit. They were talking about Daddy's shop, about how it was unfortunate but necessary. And then they laughed." Merrick's hand tightened around the phone. "Uncle Clive said something about Portland and moving and how it would be better for everyone once they cut ties completely. I think they mean you, Daddy. I think they want to take me away far." There was a tremor in her voice now, fear mixed with determination. "I won't go. I told them in my letter. The judge will understand. Right? That I want to stay with you? That Mommy is different now. Scary sometimes?" A sudden noise in the background of the recording, a door opening. "Sadie? Who are you talking to?" Talia's voice suspicious. "Just Mr. Buttons," Sadie replied, too quickly. "We're playing. Well, it's bath time. Leave the toys and come on." The recording ended abruptly. Merrick sat motionless, the phone still clutched in his hand, as pieces of the puzzle shifted in his mind. Portland. Moving. Cutting ties completely. The picture was becoming clearer. This wasn't just about custody or Talia's new relationship, or even Clive's political ambitions. This was about erasing Merrick entirely, taking Sadie so far away that his court-ordered visitation would become impractical, impossible to maintain, and the vandalism at the shop that had been deliberate sabotage. A way to destabilize him financially, to make it harder for him to afford the legal fight or to follow if they moved. He replayed Sadie's words in his mind. "I won't go. I told him in my letter." His daughter's determination both heartened and terrified him. She was too young to be caught in this battle, too young to have to fight so hard for her own voice to be heard. The courtroom was colder than Merrick remembered, the air conditioning working overtime against the June heat outside. He straightened his tie borrowed from Leon, along with the suit, and tried to calm the storm in his chest. Maya Collins sat beside him at the defense table, reviewing her notes one last time. Across the aisle, Clive's legal team had expanded to four, their expensive suits and confident postures a stark contrast to Merrick's one-woman defense. "Remember," Maya murmured, not looking up from her papers, "let them make the first aggressive move. We're playing defense until the right moment." Merrick nodded, his eyes fixed on the door through which Talia would enter. They hadn't seen each other since the preliminary hearing 6 weeks ago. In that time, his shop had been vandalized, his reputation systematically dismantled, and his financial resources stretched to breaking point. As if summoned by his thoughts, the side door opened. Talia entered with Clive at her side, a united front of wealthy indignation. She wore a simple gray dress that somehow managed to look both expensive and subdued, the perfect costume for a concerned mother seeking protection from a dangerous ex-the bailiff called the court to order, and Judge Delilah Knox entered. Her reputation for fairness and child advocacy was the one bright spot in this process. "This is the final hearing in the matter of Langley versus Langley," she began, her voice crisp and no nonsense. "Before we proceed, I want to remind everyone that the welfare of the child is this court's only concern. Not your feelings, not your personal vendettas, not your convenience. Just the child." Clive rose, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. "Your Honor, this case is fundamentally about safety. The safety of a young child who has been subjected to an increasingly unstable home environment due to her father's untreated PTSD and escalating pattern of concerning behavior." He continued in this vein, painting Merrick as a ticking time bomb, a victim of war who had become a danger to his own family. The portrait was skillfully constructed, weaving together isolated incidents, out-of-context reactions, and carefully curated testimony from witnesses who had seen Merrick on his worst days. When Maya rose for her opening, her approach was starkly different. No dramatic claims, no emotional appeals. Just facts. "Your Honor, this case is indeed about safety. The safety of a child who was suddenly removed from a stable home where she had lived happily for 6 years, by a mother who had never previously expressed any concern about Mr. Langley's parenting or mental health. A child who has since been systematically isolated from her father, subjected to coaching and manipulation, and used as a pawn in an adult power struggle." The morning unfolded as Merrick had expected, a parade of Talia's witnesses, each with carefully rehearsed stories about Merrick's concerning behavior. Always isolated incidents, stripped of context, arranged to form a pattern that didn't exist in reality. Carlton Bly, the court-appointed child psychologist, provided the most balanced testimony of the morning. "The child presents as intelligent and articulate for her age, but with signs of significant emotional distress," he explained. "She exhibits anxiety around discussions of her home life and becomes notably guarded when asked about her parents' relationship. And did she express any fear of her father?" Clive prompted. Bly paused. "Not directly, no. She spoke of her father with obvious affection. So her positive statements about her father could be a psychological defense mechanism. It's possible, but equally possible that they're genuine." Bly adjusted his glasses. Children's psychological realities are complex, especially in situations of family stress. When it was Talia's turn to testify, she took the stand with practiced grace, her composure perfect except for the occasional tremor in her hands, a detail so subtle Merrick wondered if it was rehearsed as well. "I tried so hard to make it work," she said, her voice breaking just enough. "Merrick he could be a good father when he's himself, but the war changed him. There are times when he's just gone, and Sadie would see it, this emptiness in his eyes, and she'd be so confused, so scared." As the court prepared to adjourn for the day, Clive played his final card. "Your Honor, before we conclude, I'd like to inform the court of a development relevant to these proceedings. My client has recently accepted a significant professional opportunity in Portland, which would require relocation. We'll be amending our custody request to include permission for this move, as it represents a substantial improvement in the child's quality of life and educational opportunities." The announcement hit Merrick like a physical blow. Portland was nearly 4 hours away, a distance that would make regular visitation nearly impossible on his limited budget, especially with his business in ruins. The judge frowned. This is a significant change, Mr. Brackenridge. You should have filed this amendment earlier to give the other party time to prepare a response. The opportunity only recently finalized, Your Honor. We're prepared to submit documentation first thing tomorrow morning. Judge Knox looked displeased but nodded. See that you do. Court is adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow. As he stood to leave, Merrick caught Talia watching him from across the room, her expression a mixture of triumph and wariness. She still feared him not physically, but as an obstacle to her plans, a complication in her carefully constructed narrative. Good, he thought. She should be afraid, because tomorrow, the truth would finally speak through Sadie's voice, Sadie's words, Sadie's uncoached truth, and Merrick would be ready. Judge Knox entered, her robes settling around her as she took her place at the bench. Good morning. Before we continue with testimony, I'd like to address the motion regarding relocation. Mr. Brackenridge, have you submitted the relevant documentation? Clive rose smoothly. Yes, Your Honor. We've provided the details of Mrs. Langley's employment offer from Reynolds Development Corporation, along with information about the educational options available to Sadie in Portland. When it was finally their turn to present witnesses, Maya called Leon first. Despite his initial discomfort at testifying against the brother of a fellow officer, Leon spoke honestly about his years of friendship with Merrick, the man's steady character, his dedication as a father. I've known Merrick since we served together, Leon said, his uniform crisp, his voice professional. I've seen him in the worst conditions imaginable, under stress most people can't comprehend. He's always been the steady one, the one you could count on to make the right call, even when everything was falling apart. Next came several others, all testifying to Merrick's consistent presence in Sadie's life, his patience, his quiet dedication. The narrative Maya constructed was methodical, building a picture of Merrick not as a perfect man, but as a committed father who had worked through his trauma rather than being defined by it. Finally, it was Merrick's turn to testify. As he took the stand and swore to tell the truth, he felt strangely calm. The months of anxiety and rage and helplessness seemed to recede, leaving only clarity and purpose. Mr. Langley, Maya began, can you tell the court about your relationship with your daughter? Merrick looked not at Maya, but directly at Judge Knox. Sadie is the most important person in my life. From the day she was born, I've tried to be the kind of father she deserves, present, reliable, honest. I'm not perfect. The war left marks on me. But I've never let those marks define my relationship with my daughter. Clive's cross-examination was blistering, designed to provoke exactly the kind of reaction that would support Talia's characterization of him as volatile. But Merrick remained calm, answering each question directly, refusing to be baited. Isn't it true, Clive pressed, that you've been investigated for fraud related to the vandalism at your shop? The insurance company investigated, yes. They found no evidence of fraud and are processing the claim. And isn't it convenient that this vandalism occurred just as your financial resources for this custody battle were running low? Merrick met his eyes steadily. No more convenient than your car being seen near my shop around midnight on the night of the vandalism. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Clive's face darkened. Objection. This is an outrageous accusation with no foundation. Your Honor, Maya interjected. We have a witness prepared to testify to this fact if Mr. Brackenridge wishes to pursue this line of questioning. Judge Knox looked between them, her expression sharpening. I think we'll set that aside for the moment. Any further questions for this witness, Mr. Brackenridge? Clive glared at Merrick. No further questions. As the arguments concluded, Judge Knox sat in thoughtful silence for a moment. Before I rule, she said finally, I want to address the request to hear from the child directly. Having reviewed Dr. Bly's report and the guardian ad litem's recommendations, I'm inclined to speak with Sadie in chambers. However, given her age, Your Honor, the small voice came from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. Sadie stood in the doorway, a social worker from Family Services hovering anxiously behind her. She wore a simple blue dress, her curly hair pulled back with a headband. In one hand, she clutched a folded piece of paper. In the other, Mr. Buttons. Judge Knox's surprise was evident. "Young lady, I don't believe you were scheduled to appear in court today." "I told Ms. Parker I needed to come," Sadie said, her voice surprisingly steady for a 6-year-old. "I have something important to say." Talia half rose from her seat. "Sadie, honey, you don't need to." "Mrs. Langley, please," Judge Knox interrupted. She studied Sadie thoughtfully, then nodded. "Approach the bench, young lady." Sadie walked forward, her steps small but determined. When Sadie reached the judge's bench, she looked up solemnly. "I wrote a letter," she said, holding up the folded paper. "Aunt Joni helped me with some of the spelling. I want to read it." Judge Knox hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. Objection." Clive was on his feet. "This is highly irregular and potentially harmful to the child. We have no idea what coaching may have." "Mr. Brackenridge," Judge Knox said sharply, "I will hear what the child has to say." "Go ahead, dear." Sadie unfolded the paper carefully and took a deep breath. The courtroom fell silent as her small voice filled the space. "Dear Judge Knox, my name is Sadie Elizabeth Langley. I am 6 years old. I am writing this letter because grown-ups are deciding my life without asking me what I want." She paused, glancing briefly at Merrick, then at Talia, before continuing. "My daddy makes me feel safe. Mommy tells me to say he's mean, but he's not. She tells me I have to say I'm scared of him, but that's a lie. Daddy never scared me, not even when he had bad dreams." Talia's face paled. Clive shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I don't like living with Uncle Clive. His house is big but cold. Mommy yells at me when I say I want to see Daddy. She says we're moving to Portland soon and I'll forget about him. But I won't forget. I just want to go home with Daddy." Sadie's voice grew stronger as she continued. "I don't like Mommy's new friend. He comes to Uncle Clive's house a lot. He pretends to be nice when Mommy is looking, but he's not. He scared our dog so bad that he ran away. Mommy said the dog just got lost, but I saw her friend kick him." A shocked murmur ran through the courtroom. Merrick's hands clenched into fists beneath the table, rage building at the thought of Sadie witnessing such cruelty. "Please listen to me," Sadie concluded, her eyes fixed on Judge Knox. "Grown-ups think kids don't understand, but we do. I understand that Mommy doesn't want to be with Daddy anymore. That's okay, but I want to be with him. Please let me go home. That's all I want to say. Thank you for listening. Sadie." The silence that followed was absolute. Judge Knox studied Sadie for a long moment, then looked out over the courtroom, her gaze lingering on Talia's stricken face and Merrick's carefully controlled expression. "Thank you, Sadie," she said finally. "That was very brave of you." "There's more," Sadie interrupted, her voice suddenly urgent. She reached into her backpack and pulled out Mr. Buttons. "There's a recording, in my bear, of Mommy yelling at me for wanting to see Daddy, and her friend the one who hurt our dog. I think you should hear it." The courtroom froze. For a long, suspended moment, no one moved or spoke. Then everyone reacted at once. Talia surged to her feet. "What recording?" "Sadie, what are you talking about?" Clive was shouting objections. Maya was on her feet arguing for the admission of the evidence, and the social worker looked completely bewildered. Judge Knox banged her gavel, the sharp crack cutting through the chaos. "Silence. All of you." She fixed her gaze on Sadie, who stood small but resolute, clutching Mr. Buttons to her chest. "Young lady, what exactly are you saying?" "There's a recorder in Mr. Buttons," Sadie explained, her voice steady despite the tumult around her. "Daddy gave him back to me at visitation. I figured out how to use it. I recorded Mommy and her friend when they didn't know." "This is outrageous," Clive thundered. "A blatant violation of privacy laws." "Mr. Brackenridge," Judge Knox said icily, "you will control yourself in my courtroom or be removed." She turned to Merrick, her expression severe. "Mr. Langley, did you place a recording device in your daughter's toy?" Merrick stood, meeting her gaze directly. "Yes, Your Honor." "Are you aware that recording someone without their knowledge or consent could be illegal under Oregon law?" "I am, Your Honor. But I believe my daughter was in a situation where her voice wasn't being heard, where she was being pressured and manipulated. I gave her a way to preserve the truth when adults were trying to erase it. Judge Knox's expression remained stern, though something flickered in her eyes, understanding, perhaps. I will hear the recording, she decided finally. In chambers, with counsel present. In the judge's chambers, Sadie carefully handed Mr. Buttons to Judge Knox, showing her where the small recorder was hidden in the bear's back seam. With the help of the court's IT specialist, they extracted the device and connected it to the judge's computer. Sadie, Judge Knox said gently, there are several recordings here. Which one do you think I should listen to? Sadie pointed to a file dated 3 days earlier. This one, it's when Mommy's friend was really mad. Judge Knox nodded to the IT specialist who played the file. At first, there were only the ordinary sounds of a household. Then Sadie's voice came clearly. I miss Daddy. Can I call him? Talia's response was immediate and harsh. No, you cannot call him. We talked about this, Sadie. We're starting a new life now. But I want to see him. I want to go home. This is your home now. Talia's voice rose sharply. Stop saying that. Your father doesn't deserve. She caught herself. He's not good for you right now. Why can't you understand that? Because it's not true, Sadie replied, a tremor in her voice. You're lying. Daddy never hurt me. Never. The sound of a door opening interrupted their argument. What's going on here? A male voice, smooth but with an underlying edge. Nothing, Marshall, Talia said quickly, her tone shifting to something artificially light. Sadie's just having a difficult moment. I want my daddy, Sadie insisted, her voice small but determined. Listen, kid. The man's voice, Marshall, dropped lower, more threatening. Your daddy isn't in the picture anymore. The sooner you accept that, the better for everyone. Your mom and I have plans, and those plans don't include him hanging around. You can't make me forget him, Sadie replied, the sound of something slamming a hand on a table, perhaps. You little, Marshall began, but Talia interrupted. Marshall, don't. She's just a child, a stubborn one, like her father. His tone was cold. Talia, we talked about this. If we're going to make this work, if Clive's going to get the backing he needs for his campaign, we need a clean break. No complicated custody arrangements. No ex-husband in the background. I know. Talia sounded distressed. The Portland move will take care of it. Once we're established there, this custody nonsense will be moot. Your brother's got the judge in his pocket, and your ex-husband won't have the resources to follow us. Not after what happened to his garage. There was a pregnant pause before Talia spoke again, her voice cautious. What do you mean? What happened to his garage? Marshall laughed, the sound chilling. Let's just say I called in a favor. Made sure your ex would be too busy dealing with insurance issues to mount a proper legal fight. You did that. Clive said it was just a fortuitous coincidence. Clive knows exactly what happened. It was his idea, though I handled the details. The less you know, the better, sweetheart. The recording continued for another minute, muffled voices, then silence. Judge Knox stopped the playback, her expression grim. She looked at Sadie. Thank you for your bravery, Sadie. Ms. Parker will take you back outside now while we discuss this. Once Sadie had left, Judge Knox turned to the attorneys. I believe we have several serious matters to address, including potential witness tampering and destruction of property. Clive straightened his tie, his composure slipping. Your Honor, I had no knowledge of any vandalism. That man, Marshall Reynolds, is clearly making unfounded claims to impress Mrs. Langley. So you deny any involvement in the damage to Mr. Langley's business? Categorically, Your Honor. And I believe Mrs. Langley will confirm that she was equally shocked by these allegations. Judge Knox turned to Talia, whose face had hardened into a mask of calculation. The frightened, victimized woman from earlier testimony was gone, replaced by someone coldly assessing her options. Mrs. Langley, Judge Knox said, would you care to comment on what we've just heard? Talia hesitated. I was unaware of any planned vandalism, Your Honor. That was entirely Marshall's initiative, if indeed he was involved at all. And I certainly never coached Sadie to lie about her father. The recording suggests otherwise, Judge Knox observed. The recording is incomplete and out of context, Talia countered. My concerns about Merrick's stability are genuine. Mrs. Langley, Judge Knox interrupted. I advise you to consider very carefully what you say next. There is a significant difference between expressing genuine concerns for your child's welfare and manufacturing a custody case to facilitate a relocation tied to your brother's political ambitions and your new relationship. When they returned to the courtroom, Judge Knox took her place at the bench, her expression severe. In light of evidence just presented in chambers, I am ordering the following. Temporary full custody of Sadie Langley is granted to Merrick Langley, effective immediately. Talia Langley will have supervised visitation once weekly until further notice. Talia made a small, strangled sound. Clive sat rigid beside her. Furthermore, Judge Knox continued, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation into potential criminal charges including vandalism, insurance fraud, witness tampering, and perjury. She fixed Clive with a stern gaze. Mr. Brackenridge, as an officer of this court, you should be particularly concerned about these allegations. Finally, she looked at Sadie, her expression softening slightly. Young lady, the court thanks you for your courage in speaking the truth today. It's not easy to stand up to adults, especially those closest to you. Judge Knox brought down her gavel. Court is adjourned. Mr. Langley, you may take your daughter home. Merrick moved without conscious thought, crossing to where Sadie sat. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with mingled hope and uncertainty. Is it over? She asked softly. Can I really come home? Merrick knelt before her, his heart so full it threatened to burst from his chest. Yes, sweetheart. It's over. You're coming home. Sadie flung herself into his arms, burying her face against his shoulder. He held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the small, vital warmth of her body against his. Over Sadie's head, he caught sight of Talia watching them, her expression a complex mixture of anger, regret, and something that might have been envy. Their eyes met briefly before she looked away, gathering her things with jerky movements. Merrick felt no triumph, no vindication, only relief. The battle was over, and Sadie was coming home. That was all that mattered. Outside the courthouse, the June sun beat down on the stone steps. Reporters from the local paper hovered at the perimeter, Clive's political aspirations having lent the custody case a newsworthiness it might otherwise have lacked. Merrick emerged with Sadie's hand in his, Maya following close behind. The social worker had released Sadie into his custody with surprisingly little paperwork. Judge Knox's orders had been unequivocal. Joni waited by Merrick's truck, her face split in a wide grin. There's my girl, she called, opening her arms to Sadie, who ran to her for a fierce hug. The moment of reunion was interrupted by the courthouse doors slamming open. Talia emerged, her face contorted with rage, Clive half a step behind her. You think this is over? She shouted, striding toward Merrick. You think you've won? Merrick turned, instinctively stepping between Talia and Sadie. Talia, not here. Not now. You manipulated her. Talia's voice rose hysterically. You turned my own daughter against me with your pathetic victim act. Clive grabbed her arm. Talia, stop. There are reporters. She shook him off. I don't care. He destroyed everything. Our plans, our future, our plans. Merrick's voice was quiet but carried in the sudden hush. That's what this was about, wasn't it? Not Sadie's welfare. Your plans with Reynolds. Clive's political ambitions. You never understood. You were content with your small, meaningless life, fixing cars and playing house. I deserve more. Sadie deserved more. Sadie deserved the truth. She deserved to be treated like a person, not a pawn. Talia's face contorted. Don't you dare lecture me about my own daughter. You turned her against me with your wounded soldier routine. You never wanted me to be happy. I wanted you to be happy. Merrick corrected, his voice steady. I just didn't want you to sacrifice our daughter for it. Clive stepped between them, his lawyer's instincts finally overriding his anger. This discussion is over. Talia, we need to go. Now. But Talia wasn't finished. She looked past Merrick to where Sadie stood with Joni, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and hurt. Sadie, she called, her voice suddenly softening. Honey, you don't understand what's happening. Daddy tricked you. He put that recorder in your bear to manipulate you. Sadie stepped closer to Joni, her small face solemn. No, Mommy. You were the one telling me to say things that weren't true. The simple statement, delivered in a child's clear voice, seemed to hit Talia like a physical blow. She staggered slightly, her carefully constructed reality crumbling around her. You don't mean that, she whispered. You can't mean that. Mrs. Langley. Leon's voice cut through the tension as he approached from the courthouse steps. I think it's time for you to leave. Talia looked around wildly, suddenly aware of the gathering crowd, the reporters scribbling furiously, the cell phones capturing every moment of her collapse. This isn't over, she hissed at Merrick, but the threat sounded hollow now, desperate rather than dangerous. It is over, Merrick replied quietly. For Sadie's sake, accept that and move on. As Clive pulled Talia toward their waiting car, her resistance suddenly crumbled. Her shoulders slumped, and for a brief moment, the mask fell completely. What remained was a woman who had gambled everything: her marriage, her relationship with her daughter, her integrity, and lost. He turned back to Sadie, kneeling to her level. Ready to go home, kiddo? She nodded, her face brightening. Can we have pancake for dinner? Merrick laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. Absolutely. Pancake for dinner sounds perfect. The diner was closed for the evening, its neon open sign dark, the booths empty. But lights spilled from the kitchen, where Joni was cooking up a storm pancakes for Sadie, as promised, along with eggs and bacon and all the fixings of a proper celebration dinner. She's going to be okay, Joni said quietly, flipping a pancake with expert precision. Kids are resilient. I know. Merritt's voice was rough with emotion. But she shouldn't have had to be. Shouldn't have been put in the middle like that. No, she shouldn't have. Joni's expression hardened. Which is why I have something for you, or rather, for Leon. She reached beneath the counter and pulled out an envelope. Remember Jason Kettering? The kid who saw Clive's car at your shop the night of the vandalism? I didn't just talk to him. I recorded our conversation. Joni tapped the envelope. With his permission. He was scared at first, but after I explained what was happening, what they were trying to do to you and Sadie, well, turns out the kid has a conscience. You recorded it. Every word. Joni's smile was fierce, including the part where he described Clive getting out of the car with another man, a man matching Marshall Reynolds' description, and the part where he saw them approach your shop with a duffel bag, then leave 20 minutes later without it. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Leon entered, still in uniform, but with a weariness that spoke of a long day. Sorry I'm late, he said, hanging his hat on the rack by the door. Had to process some interesting paperwork. He caught sight of their expressions. What's going on? Joni slid the envelope across the counter. A little insurance policy, in case Clive and his friend try to weasel out of what they did to Merrick's shop. Leon picked up the envelope, his expression cautious. What exactly are we talking about here? Recorded testimony from Jason Kettering. He saw them, Leon, the night of the vandalism. He saw them go in with a duffel bag and come out without it. Leon looked down at the envelope, then at Merrick. You know this changes things. Vandalism is one thing. But this is conspiracy, destruction of property with intent to obstruct justice. If Reynolds was involved, and if he's tied to Clive's campaign financing, then Clive had a lot more to worry about than a custody case, Merrick finished. So does Talia, if she knew about it. Leon's expression was grim. Even if she didn't know beforehand, the recording from the bear suggests she became aware afterward and didn't report it. Merrick glanced at Sadie, who was now drawing contentedly at the booth, blissfully unaware of the adult conversation. I don't want Sadie in the middle of a criminal case. She's been through enough. She might not need to be, Leon said. Between the recording from the bear and this new evidence, there might be enough to proceed without directly involving her. The autumn sun slanted through the trees, casting long shadows across the backyard where Merrick was putting the finishing touches on Sadie's treehouse. The structure was modest but solid, a simple platform with railings and a small cabin, accessible by a ladder that Sadie could manage easily on her own. Is it ready yet? Sadie called from below, bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. Merrick smiled, driving the last nail into place. Almost. Just making sure everything's secure. He climbed down the ladder, giving the whole structure one final inspection before turning to his daughter. Okay, safety check. What are the rules? Sadie rolled her eyes dramatically, but there was no real annoyance behind it. No climbing when it's raining or dark. Always use both hands on a ladder. No pushing or roughhousing. And if I invite friends over, a grown-up has to be in the yard. Perfect. Merrick nodded solemnly. Then I hereby declare this tree house officially open. The shop bell rang from the front of the house, signaling a customer at the newly rebuilt Langley's Auto. The insurance settlement had covered most of the damages, and with help from the community, once the truth about the vandalism had come out, Merrick had managed to reopen within 4 months. The customer turned out to be Leon, not in uniform today, leaning against his personal truck. Hey, stranger, Merrick greeted him. What brings you by on your day off? Don't tell me that timing belt is slipping again. Leon chuckled. Truck's fine. Just thought I'd drop by with some news. His expression turned more serious. The sentencing came down this morning for Reynolds. 3 years. Eligible for parole in 18 months. Leon shrugged. Not as much as he deserved, but his cooperation helped nail down some other shady business dealings. And Talia, probation, community service. The court considered her a peripheral figure. Leon hesitated. She's leaving town, moving to Seattle from what I heard. Fresh start. The news settled over Merrick with surprising neutrality. There had been a time when any mention of Talia would have sparked anger or pain. Now, there was just a distant sadness for what could have been, for the family that had fractured beyond repair. As she tried to contact Sadie, Leon asked carefully, not directly. Her lawyer called mine last month. Merrick leaned against the garage door frame. She wants to revisit visitation after the holidays. Supervised, of course. And how do you feel about that? Merrick looked back toward the yard, where he could hear Sadie chattering happily to herself in her new domain. It's not about how I feel. It's about what's best for Sadie. You did good, Mayor, Leon said finally. Through all of it, you never lost sight of what mattered. I had help. Merrick smiled slightly. You Joni Maya, even Sadie herself. Turns out I've got a pretty good team. Later that evening, as they drove home from Joni's diner, Sadie drowsy with contentment in the back seat, she asked a question that caught Merrick by surprise. Dad, what if Mommy tries to come back? Like to stay? Merrick considered his answer carefully, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. Then we'll handle it. Together. Like we handle everything. Sadie nodded, processing this. But we don't go backward, right? That's what you said before. That's right, Merrick affirmed, remembering his words from the courthouse steps. We never go backward, only forward. Sadie settled back against her seat, satisfied with the answer. Within minutes, she was asleep, her breathing deep, and even as the truck crested the hill leading home, the last rays of sunset painted the horizon in shades of amber and gold. Merrick glanced once more at his sleeping daughter in the rearview mirror, then back to the road ahead. Sadie hummed softly in her sleep, a habit she'd had since infancy. The sound, barely audible over the truck's engine, filled the cab with a sense of peace that no hardship, no struggle could diminish, scarred but whole. Hardened but undefeated, they drove on toward home, toward the future, leaving the battles of the past behind, but never forgetting the lessons they had taught.